Good morning. Okay. Oh. There I am. I just saw myself.
Come back to the city where you belong. Come back to the city. Oh, you know it's home. We all want you back. Fact, believe me, I asked every citizen. They said get your butt back to the city where you belong. Another foggy day in San Francisco. Seems like you left and took the sunshine with you. Not fair. We you should be here. We miss it from Japantown down to the pier. Sunsets and the sunset aren't the same. The oranges and reds have now all gone gray. Hella bros took strolls out the Golden Gate. Really need you back right away. Come back to the city where you belong. Come back to the city. Oh, you know it's home. I want you back. Fact, believe me, I asked every citizen. They said get your butt back to the city where you belong. Well, the kids in the marina are still getting wasted. Hippies on Hate Street are still getting faded. Dudes in the Castro are still getting naked in public. But let's change the subject. All I'm trying to say is that I am missing our days in the park and our nights in the mission. You're breaking our hearts if you stop and listen. You hear the painted ladies cry. Come back to the city where you belong. Come back to the city. Oh, you know it's home. I want you back. Fact, believe me, I asked every citizen. They said get your butt back to the city where you belong. Yeah. Well, sometimes you need a change of pace. You go looking for yourself in another place, and you find that all along there is no place like home. I know you miss the city life, the lights at night, they're gonna shine like crazy when you come home, when you come home, when you come home. Oh, come back to the city where you belong. Come back to the city. Oh, you know it's home. I want you back. Fact, we voted, it passed. You better get your ass on the next bus back to the city where you belong. Yeah. Oh, come back to the city.
Where? There it is over there. Great to see you all virtually. Thank you for joining us for the 35th Annual National Philanthropy Day celebration of the Golden Gate chapter of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. Ta-da! Now, of course, we miss seeing all of you in person, but while we are gathered in a different way, the reason for gathering has not changed. We are here to celebrate the Bay Area's passion for philanthropy. 2020 has been an unprecedented year with the pandemic and shining a light on systemic inequalities in our healthcare, economic, legal, and social institutions. But various philanthropic organizations have stepped up in a major way to come together, to dialogue, and to work together to solve some of our intractable social and racial issues. As represented by today's theme, we are demonstrating the power of a united community. Today, it is my pleasure to join with you in acknowledging and celebrating our local, the donors, the volunteers, professionals, and the organizations that exemplify the very best in our nonprofit community. To begin today's awards ceremony, please join me in welcoming the president of the AFP Golden Gate Board of Directors, Victoria Silva.
Thank you, Renelle, and welcome to the Association of Fundraising Professionals Golden Gate Chapter's 35th National Philanthropy Day. That's a mouthful. Well, what a year it has been. As I suspect all chapter presidents do as they begin their one-year term in office, I had hopes and dreams and all kinds of plans to advance the excellent work of our chapter. And as I suspect many of you joining us today have experienced, my plans took a detour somewhere around March 10th. But as a testimony to my amazing colleagues on the AFP Golden Gate Chapter Board, we pivoted and reimagined our year. Philanthropy in the San Francisco Bay Area has also pivoted to embrace our most critical needs, including our new COVID masked reality and our efforts to be better human beings as we remember George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and too many other members of the Black community who lost their lives to police brutality and racial injustice. Our chapter has worked hard to help support those who need us by thanking and supporting our first responders, educating our membership, and helping move us and our community towards equity and justice. We've all had to learn to do things differently, reflect on our lives and the lives of our family, friends, and neighbors, and come together as one strong philanthropic community. I am so very proud to have served as this year's AFP Golden Gate Chapter President and proud to share with you some of the great work this chapter did in 2020 to impact our community. When our members told us they were having financial challenges, we raised funds from within our own board to offer member scholarships to those who wish to become or remain AFP members. This was in addition to scholarship monies offered by AFP Global. And we offered our programs free of charge all year. We were one of the first chapters nationwide to offer a program on how to fundraise during a crisis, and we offered that on March 23rd. And of course, we offered programs on self-care during these stressful times, including yoga classes. And we're building our members' core competencies of promoting racial justice and equity through programs focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, including how to build a diverse board and social justice fundraising. We offered resources for members to read and educate themselves on issues of racism and equity, and we now require that all job postings include salary ranges to help advance pay equity. And we listened. We listened to our membership. We listened and learned from other chapters, community members, and organizations on how to do the hard and noble work of fundraising with kindness, gratitude, generosity, equity, inclusion, and ethics. This year's National Philanthropy Day Award recipients truly represent our wonderful San Francisco Bay Area philanthropic community in each of their work and the nonprofit organizations they represent. And now I have the privilege of saying thank you to some of our brilliant and generous sponsors. So please help me thank the following top sponsors: Arthur and Tony Remby Rock, Ambassador James Hormel and Michael Hormel, Rosalind Croman, Sissy Swig, Akiko Yamazaki and Jerry Yang, Fred Levin, the Shenson Foundation, Pitch and Kathy Johnson, Asset Management Company, Marcia and John Goldman, Leftwich Event Specialists, Pisces Foundation, Salesforce, the Gerson and Barbara Baker Philanthropic Fund, Dolby Laboratories, and Twitter. And thank you to all who supported a Spirit of Philanthropy Award and all those of you who have honored our award winners with tribute gifts and additional sponsorships. I'd also like to give a big special thanks to our fantastic, gorgeous, and dynamic MC, Renelle Brooks Moon, to all my colleagues on the AFP Golden Gate Chapter Board, to our Crackerjack administrative team led by Sabrina Ritchie, to our technical and event specialists, including Hovercast, EAV, and Leftwich Events, and especially to our NPD co-chairs, Ken Summer and Louise Gregory, and their NPD committee. And finally, I offer my most heartfelt and sincere congratulations to each and every award recipient today. We're honored by the work you do to make our philanthropic community the best it can be. Ken and Louise, the virtual stage is yours.
Welcome to National Philanthropy Day and our first virtual celebration of the amazing philanthropists and fundraising professionals who made such an important impact in the Bay Area. Golden Gate Chapter has hosted National Philanthropy Day for 34 years, and all past honorees are listed in your program.
Thank you to our leaders, board members, and committee chairs, all listed in the program. This year, it was an all-hands-on-deck situation to transform this meaningful event into a virtual platform. Ken and I are grateful for your partnership.
And thank you to our sponsors listed in the program, and thanks to the great teams of Leftwich Event Specialists and Hovercast, the producers of today's event. And a very special and warm thanks to Renelle Brooks Moon, our Master of Ceremonies today. Renelle lights up every room she enters, even on Zoom, and we're honored to have her involved again this year.
Hi, I'm Catherine Bella, Chief Strategy Officer at PRC. We're a $30 million San Francisco-based nonprofit that provides a continuum of care to our city's most vulnerable residents and advocates for policy changes to reduce the root causes of poverty. I'd like to thank AFP for this lovely recognition through the Hank Rosso Award. And I also send thanks to everyone viewing today for being a part of our broader Bay Area philanthropic family. Because regardless of our vantage point, nonprofit board member, CEO, consultant, fundraiser, our dedication to philanthropy is what helps to make the positive changes in the world that we all wish to impact. As far as fundraising goes, I learned early on that we can all have the best plans and dreams to change the world, but without ever more savvy ability to raise funds for the causes that matter to us, those plans can never be successfully realized. Philanthropic dollars are of utmost importance in creating a formula for successful and positive social change. Bringing together innovative nonprofit leaders and staff with donors who are like-minded and partnering to advance our collective goals is what it's all about. So on this very special day, I'd like to send my deepest appreciation to everyone in the audience for all that you do to advance philanthropy in the world in which we live. Our work and the potential for our collective power has never been more important than now. Thank you.
Hello to the AFP community. It is wonderful to be here today. And on behalf of all 5,000 Twitter employees worldwide and our 50 nonprofit partners in San Francisco, we are thrilled to be the recipient of the Outstanding Corporate Grantmaker Award. It is truly an honor. Twitter first moved to the mid-market neighborhood of San Francisco in June of 2012, in what now feels like a century ago. We got to know this amazing community through a 6-month listening tour that led to the grand opening of Twitter's $3 million Neighbor Nest, a community space dedicated to creating new opportunities through technology for San Francisco's most underserved populations. Along the way, we've worked with amazing organizations like Compass Family Services to provide internet safety and education for homeless families. We've worked with JVS and Code Tenderloin to build a stronger pipeline to good jobs that pay a living wage. We've worked with an amazing team at San Francisco General Hospital Foundation to address some of the most serious gaps in our public health system that lead to homelessness and addictive illness. And finally, we've enjoyed partnering with a new generation of budding artists, writers, and poets at 826 Valencia. Fast forward to today, and no one could have anticipated the world we are living in. This public health crisis, alongside a long overdue reckoning on racial inequality and systemic racism, has shown a bright light on how much work we have to do as a society to make things right. Beyond our cash grants and beyond our days of service at Twitter, our commitment is to be here in San Francisco with all of you and with our partners around the world to help solve these issues, to make sure hashtags like Black Lives Matter, Me Too, and Love Wins continue to shape the way we think of a more diverse and inclusive world. It is my honor to accept this award on behalf of Twitter and to be part of this amazing community that seeks to change the world for the better, one day and one tweet at a time. Thank you so much.
Our next honoree is the recipient of the Outstanding Youth in Philanthropy Award. This award recognizes service by an individual or group of young people between the ages of 5 and 17 who demonstrate outstanding commitment to the community through direct financial support, development of charitable programs, volunteering, and leadership in philanthropy. Kylie Frame is a recent Tamalpais High School graduate who has spent the past few years in her school's leadership program running community outreach events. When COVID-19 brought her senior year to a sudden halt, she started Feed the Frontlines Marin, and she raised nearly $70,000 to support local restaurants by purchasing meals and delivering them to frontline workers across Marin. Congratulations, Kylie! Yay!
Thank you.
Yay! So tell me what inspired you to start Feed the Frontlines Marin, a little bit about how it works and a little bit about what the response has been.
So aside from the struggling frontline workers who are putting themselves at risk to help us and keep us safe and keep us well fed, our friends over in New York City where things were really bad, they own a group of restaurants, the DiPietros, and they started Feed the Frontlines New York City. And the mom of that family used to play lacrosse with my mom, and on my mom and her mom's weekly Zooms, they would all be catching up, and I heard about Feed the Frontlines New York City. And a lot of the teammates started to begin their own local chapters of Feed the Frontlines. And when I heard what was going on, I decided to give it my best shot at starting one here in Marin. And so the response immediately was, I was overwhelmed. I like to tell people I set my initial fundraising goal to $2,000, and clearly that was exceeded. I think what stood out to me most was just how grateful the frontline workers were, especially the grocery store employees and the refuse employees. And we delivered meals to the people who work at San Quentin and the frontline workers who weren't necessarily shown in the media as much. And they were just so grateful to be thought of. And honestly, it made me realize how underappreciated they are in our day-to-day life.
Yeah, it's so true. I often say they're like the forgotten frontline heroes. And God bless our healthcare workers who put their lives on the line every day. Absolutely. But there are so many others that do the work to just keep us all day to day living. And so it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary what you have done. It really is. And I'd like you to tell me a little bit about why you feel it's important for young people to get involved in philanthropy.
Yeah, I mean, aside from, I obviously believe that just giving back is an important part of life, but I've found, especially through this, how rewarding philanthropy can be, especially during a time when it can be hard to have a purpose. I found that when my senior year was cut short and my lacrosse season was canceled and my prom was canceled, my graduation was canceled, I was like, I felt like, what do I do when I wake up in the morning, get on my Zoom classes? It's hard to kind of find purpose. And so this can be something, philanthropy in general, but especially right now, helps you have a reason to get up in the morning and work hard and work towards a goal. But you also can develop lots of skills and meet really cool people. And I found that it doesn't really matter how old you are, as long as you have the guts to start or to join something. There are going to be people along the way that will help you continue it or to cross the finish line.
I'm just so impressed by you, young lady. And I'd like to ask you what's in your future in terms of higher education, and how are you going to continue how you would like to continue your philanthropic work?
Yeah, so I'm actually taking a gap year right now. And during this time, I'm continuing with Feed the Frontlines Marin, but I've also started an equitable tutoring program where local tutors and local students can be matched with each other regardless of their ability to pay. So I'm pulling on my Feed the Frontline skills to try and make that happen. As next year, I will be attending Vanderbilt University in Nashville, where I will study education and human and organizational development. And so I'm trying to kind of pull on my passion for working with kids and start this program, pull from my skills, pull from what I really care about, and put that together. And then next semester, before I go, I'm hoping to find an internship with a bigger nonprofit and learn more about what it's like to run a nonprofit on a large scale, as opposed to just myself and my hometown and working with a few local restaurants and stuff.
Well, you are really an extraordinary young lady. I'm really sorry and bummed out that there was no prom and no graduate. I mean, that really sucks. But you have found a passion and you're doing some really incredible work. And I know it's got to be rewarding for you. So congratulations on winning this award.
Thank you so much. Honestly, if I have to say anything, this award has been a bright light in a dark time when I didn't think things would get better. This changed my life more than any senior prom would have. So it's great.
Oh, that's
Thank you so
wonderful.
much.
That's wonderful. And I have a feeling there are going to be more awards in your future. So you need to invest in a trophy case at some point, is what I'm saying. Okay.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Thanks, Kylie. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about you and watching you in the future. I'm going to be keeping my eyes on you, young lady.
Well,
Congratulations.
hopefully I'll come find you at a Giants game.
So adorable. Adopt her. And now we are pleased to announce the Vineyards Award recipient. This award celebrates an organization with an operating budget of less than $1 million that effectively addresses serious community problems. It does this through a passionate staff commitment and the innovative use of volunteers and community partnerships. As the recipient of the 2020 Vineyards Award, City Hope is a room for those with living space, creatively offering as many elements of home as possible for those living on the margins in the Tenderloin neighborhood. In addition to a 2-year transitional sober living home for 22 residents, the City Hope Community Center offers vulnerable neighbors family-style meals and fun nights of movies and karaoke, plus bathrooms, hot showers, even socks and toothbrushes, the things that we often take for granted. Accepting the award on behalf of the organization are the Reverends Sally Steele and Paul Trudeau.
Hello, I'm Reverend Paul Trudeau.
And I'm Reverend Sally Steele, and we are the co-directors of City Hope. We are so honored to be receiving the Vineyard Award from the AFP Golden Gate chapter. Here at City Hope, we strive to bring our neighbors in the Tenderloin together. We work with our most marginalized neighbors who are dealing with a variety of issues, from poverty and addiction to trauma and mental and physical ailments. And they also bring a lot of joy and beauty to our community center as well. So we strive to provide a place where people can come together and receive a hot homemade meal, be able to take a shower, and be able to gather with their neighbors. We also provide a 22-unit sober living environment for folks who are in recovery and looking for that next step towards their independent living.
Our guests that we serve live on the streets of San Francisco, and they all already live in a crisis of not having a home. When COVID-19, the pandemic hit, there was a crisis on top of a crisis, and we had to quickly pivot all of our programming to go from inside to outside. And I'm proud of our team that we were able to do that, to take all of our meals and make them to-go meals. We started doubling the amount of meals that we were serving, and also doubling the amount of groceries that we were serving to disabled elderly that were sheltering in place. Our team came together during a really tough time. And part of our team that I'm very encouraged by is our development officer. She believes in what we're doing and helps us get our story out there to other people that believe in our work and want to get behind us. And in doing so, she helps us to dream a bigger missional dream for the Tenderloin neighborhood. And so I want to thank AFP and the Golden Gate chapter for believing in us and encouraging us during this tough time by giving us this award. Thank you so much.
Congratulations once again, Reverend Trudeau, and thank you for all that you do, City Hope. And now I'd like to take some time to celebrate the lives of those in our philanthropic community who have passed away during this last year. You can learn more about their contributions both locally and globally in our program. This year's tribute features musical accompaniment by cellist Saul Richmond playing the spot in G. Let's honor them now. What a moving tribute to those that we have lost. May they continue to rest in eternal peace and power. Moving on now to the next award, it is the Outstanding Foundation or Grant Organization Award. This honor recognizes financial support and motivation profits and grant makers alike while developing innovative approaches to philanthropy. This year's honoree is the West Contra Costa Public Education Fund, also known as the Ed Fund. The Ed Fund is a key partner for the West Contra Costa Unified School District, providing much needed resources for the students, teachers, and schools of West Contra Costa. Its community approach to philanthropy, partnerships, and grant making has led the fund to be innovative in meeting needs and quickly adaptive during a time of unexpected crisis. With the current public health in partnership with the USD, raised more than $350,000 to support the students. In collaboration with community and government leaders, they launched the Richmond Rapid Response Fund that raised $380,000 to $500 emergency cash to Richmond residents. And having spent my early childhood in the city of Richmond, it gives me great pleasure to introduce, on behalf of the Ed Fund, the Executive Director, Jasmine Jones.
My name is Jasmine Jones, and I represent the West Contra Costa Public Education Fund, also known as the Ed Fund. We are very humbled and honored to be receiving the Outstanding Foundation Award on behalf of the Richmond community and the coalition of members who believed in a collective fundraising model to serve residents in a time of crisis and beyond. The Ed Fund is an organization that mobilizes resources for students furthest from opportunity throughout West Contra Costa Unified School District. This year, we are most proud of our partnership with the City of Richmond and various community-based organizations to launch the Richmond Rapid Response Fund and provide nearly 500 residents with $500 cash since May. Our success in securing $1.9 million to support students, teachers, and schools in the 1920 school year, and our ability to quickly pivot in order to provide cash relief to district families, purchase hotspots, and secure other resources to ensure the continuity of learning in West Contra Costa Unified during the pandemic. We are so grateful to receive this award and to have an opportunity to bring awareness to a region often overlooked in the Bay Area. We recognize the work to challenge and change systems of oppression is right at its peak, and how important it is for all of us to stay active and demand change so all communities can thrive. Again, thank you so much.
Well, it is my distinct pleasure to announce the recipients of our Outstanding Fundraising Volunteers Award. This award recognizes an individual who has demonstrated exceptional leadership skills in coordinating groups of volunteers at more than one nonprofit for major fundraising projects. And this year, we are honoring not one, not two, but three outstanding volunteers: Lynn Benioff, Mark Buell, and Randy Fisher, all of whom are each incredible philanthropists who individually support many organizations here in the Bay Area. Recently, they brought their combined fundraising prowess to the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy Presidio Tunnel Tops campaign. And as co-chairs of the campaign, they successfully raised over $101 million, surpassing their original goal of $98 million. So congratulations to all three of you on being named the 2020 National Philanthropy Day Outstanding Fundraising Volunteers. And each of you has a long history as a philanthropist and a volunteer fundraiser. So I'd like to start by asking each of you how you got involved in fundraising and your philosophy around philanthropy. Lynn, let's start with you.
Well, yes. Hi, Renelle. Thank you for having us today. It's an honor to be here. How I got involved in philanthropy was really focusing on areas that are important, not just to me, but to the community, such as children's health, and especially being outdoors in the environment. For me personally, my moments of greatest joy and happiness come outside. So it was such an honor and so exciting for me to be part of the Tunnel Tops campaign, because I will be the first one there when it opens in 2021. Really looking forward to celebrating and being outside with everyone.
What I love about all of you is your undeniable passion for nature and the outdoors and the environment. And could you speak a little bit, Mark, about where that passion comes from? I know I did see an interview where you talked about traveling and camping in the VW bug with your mom when you were little. Is that where it started for you?
That's really how it started. My mother was a remarkably creative soul, and she converted a very early Volkswagen bus into a camper and put her kids in it. And we literally went around the rim of the United States, 44 days, 10,000 miles, staying in all the national parks. And it instilled in me as a young boy just the wonders and the diversity of the country. So it really feels like it came naturally.
Yeah, and Randy, kind of a similar upbringing for you?
Very similar. I grew up in the Sacramento Valley and spent 90% of my time outside plodding in the creeks and riding my bike around the neighborhood. My parents weren't big travelers. So again, we were national park people, and it just always, I think, brought home to me the importance of being outside and taking in all of nature's wonders, like Mark said.
So, Mark, I'd like you to share a little bit about the Presidio Tunnel Tops campaign. I got to host the groundbreaking last fall, which was so exciting. So tell us about the project.
So the genesis of it all was when Doyle Drive, which was in bad need of repair, was finally funded and ready to go. They had the wisdom to want to connect Crissy Field to the main post. And by doing that, they built these tunnels over Doyle Drive. So San Francisco was blessed all of a sudden with 20 new acres right on the waterfront of open space. And the Conservancy, in participation with the Presidio Trust, did an international competition. And they narrowed it down to 5 finalists, and in the end selected James Corner and Associates to do his design of the Tunnel Top Park. And you may know that Corner did the High Line in New York and got a reputation that was second to none. I could go on for a long time, but I can tell you that they got lots of community input. And the final product is something that everybody can be very, very proud of. There's something in there for everybody. And so we're looking forward to this grand date next year of opening the park, I hope.
Yes, we all do. Fingers crossed. And Randy, what excites you about this project, and what does it mean, and what is it going to mean to the city and county of San Francisco?
Well, there's just so much to say about all the goodness that this open space is going to bring to our city. Chris Leonards, who's the CEO of the Conservancy, recently wrote something that really summed it up for me. She said that, now more than ever, we can recognize that our parks and open spaces are places of community, renewal, well-being, and solace. And, as we continue to navigate and adapt and respond to this ever-changing reality that we're living right now, one thing remains constant, and that's the power of nature and public lands for wellness, inspiration, and belonging. So, right from the beginning, the vision of the Presidio Tunnel Tops has been centered on openness and inclusivity, not for only every person in our Bay Area to enjoy, but for citizens from around the world. And I feel confident that one day when tourism rebounds, people from diverse areas of the globe will walk and play and relax and learn on the tunnel top. So really exciting.
So I joined as a director of the Presidio Trust board in 2015. And soon after that, they told me about the new project going on, the tunnel tops. So I was lucky enough to chair the campaign with Mark Buell and Randy Fisher and work with all of the incredible professionals at the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. So immediately this small group got together and started reviewing all of the information we had gotten from different community groups we worked with. How do you use the Presidio? What do you want to do in the Presidio? How would you use this park? What do you want in this park? Really talk to children's health experts. What are the best types of play for children's health and development? Looking at education programs, talking to all the educators. What really are the programs that are going to be successful in inspiring youth to be happy in their own lives and to find careers, hopefully, in science, in the environment? It's been a joy to meet park rangers that started off at the Christie Field Youth Center as middle school students and are now park rangers working for the National Park Service. So we'd come together and we'd envision the project, look at what we had, talk to incredible designers, architects, and try and put together the best park that we could to serve the community. And the campaign committee, it's a small but mighty team, really came together. Everyone's so passionate about this park and what a lasting gift this will be for generations to come in the Bay Area. It's in such an iconic spot in the world. And we came together and we had a lot of fun. And I must say that fundraising is very hard work. I've been in a lot of different fundraising meetings. Not all of them are fun, but this group of individuals in particular at the Parks Conservancy, every meeting, it was so inspiring and happy. And I know that feeling is going to carry through into the park experience. So that's how I got involved. And I really, it's been an honor to serve on this campaign committee.
And finally, I'd just like to ask all three of you what receiving this award means to you. Randy, why don't we start with you?
It's just such an honor. I really wanted to thank the fundraising professionals, the Association of Fundraising Professionals, for this great honor. I'm really humbled by it and share it with so many people, as we've all said. But I think one of the most important lessons about being in a thriving community is just learning how to support it and uphold the critical role that the nonprofits are playing in our area, because without them, we wouldn't be able to provide a social safety net, health assistance, cultural and educational enrichment, outdoor experiences that really move us deeply, and the list goes on and on. And so, without knowing that we need to stand up and really embrace these organizations and help them, then we wouldn't be anywhere, because I think that by supporting them, we're benefiting our entire ecosystem that we call our community.
And Mark?
Well, I'm extremely honored. There's no question about it. It takes a village. There's an old line: victory has many parents, defeat is an orphan. And we're here because of victories that took many parents. And in our case, thinking of the National Park Service, the Presidio Trust, the Golden Gate National Park Conservancy, even Caltrans played a role. So, it's remarkable. So I think Lynn and Randy and I are really wearing the hats of being at the top of that pyramid, but there's a lot of people behind it that made it possible. So we're totally honored and flattered to be presented with this. Thank you.
It's well earned and well deserved. And let's check in with Lynn now. Tell us what receiving this award means to you.
Well, I'm just very honored to receive this award. And I will say it's really just icing on the cake of what's been a fantastic journey in being part of the team that conceptualized the park from the beginning through raising all this money and actually exceeding our campaign goals. And I've really learned so much being part of the campaign, and have a whole new level of respect for fundraising professionals. There's so many I've met at the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy that are stellar at what they do, and I will take the lessons I learned from them into whatever I do next.
So exciting. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And on behalf of a grateful Bay Area, thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Randy, for all of your ongoing fundraising efforts. It is greatly appreciated. And I'm so excited about the Tunnel Tops campaign. I hope you'll involve me when we have the grand opening.
Yes, we certainly will. And thank you for all that you do for the community and being part of all of these great projects. I see you at many things around town as the master MC. So thank you.
Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely chatting with all three of you, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Rock star, three of them. And now I'd like to honor the Outstanding Foundation or Grant-Making Professional. This award recognizes a professional who individually initiates or supports creative nonprofit efforts and works to develop philanthropic partnerships with organizations and communities in an exceptionally effective or unique way. Three is Darany Petsad, President of Grantmakers Concerned with Immigrants and Refugees. Under her leadership, GCIR has leveraged hundreds of millions of dollars in rights of immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers, and cultivate their inclusion and contributions to our society. We are so honored to have with us today, all the way from Thailand, Darany Petsad.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be in community with you on National Philanthropy Day today. I'm Darany Petsad, President of GSER, Grantmakers Concerned with Immigrants and Refugees. Receiving the Outstanding Foundation Professional Award is an incredible honor, especially in this extraordinarily difficult year. This is an honor that I accept on behalf of the entire GSER team, our dedicated funding colleagues, and our visionary nonprofit partners. Communities of color in the Bay Area, including immigrants and their families, have been hit hard by the pandemic, the wildfires, and the economic hardships that are deeply rooted in longstanding racial inequities. In these turbulent times, I'm proud of how Bay Area funders are rising to the challenge and leading at the regional, state, and national level. Funders are working together and funding what the community needs, whether or not these needs fit perfectly within their guidelines. And fundraising professionals like yourselves are doing a bang-up job of articulating those needs and speaking truth to power. This year, philanthropy has been forced to reckon with our country's devastating history of racism and racial injustice. I'm hopeful this reckoning will bring lasting changes within our sector and ultimately help transform our communities and our country into a just and equitable place where everyone can thrive and belong, no matter the color of their skin, who they are, or where they were born. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Darany. Congratulations to you and GCIR. As we come close to the end of today's program, I'm thrilled to announce two of our most significant awards. The first is the Outstanding Philanthropist Award, presented to an individual or family with a record of exceptional generosity. Through their direct financial support, they have demonstrated outstanding civic and charitable responsibility and have encouraged others to take philanthropic leadership roles in their communities. It is an honor to present the 2020 award to Regan Pritzker. Regan began her engagement with philanthropy with the Libra Foundation, founded by her parents. She later co-founded the Katali Foundation with her husband in 2018 with the goal of moving all assets to community ownership. She sees her role in philanthropy as actively engaging in redistributing wealth and works with other progressive funders and movement activists in pursuit of a just transition, building a regenerative economy that supports ecological and social well-being. Let's welcome Regan Pritzker.
Receiving an Outstanding Philanthropist Award is both very moving and also complicated. It's complicated because I see philanthropy as a symptom of a broken economy, one that has created the conditions for massive wealth accumulation for the few through a racial capitalism that is exploitative and extractive. That is why philanthropy is overrepresented by people like me, people who have benefited from white privilege and its companion, intergenerational wealth privilege. Despite its beautiful name, honoring the love of people, philanthropy has for too long served as another vehicle for consolidating and reinforcing power imbalances that cause harm to the communities we ostensibly exist to serve. The moving part of the award is that in honoring the work of the Katali Foundation, I see hope. I take this award as evidence that we are inside a moment of inevitable transition and that justice and transformation may yet be possible in philanthropy and in our world. The Katali Foundation was founded in 2018, grounded in the values of healing, love, joy, and abundance. Our goal is to spend out the entire $445 million endowment to build cultural, political, and economic power in the community's best position to build a just and equitable world for all of us. This means centering and deeply funding Black and Indigenous women, people of color, and queer feminist leadership. The Katali CEO, Nwamaka Agbo, applies a restorative economy lens to our work, seeking always to shift power and decision-making to frontline grassroots leaders in ways that aim to put us shoulder to shoulder with them in the movement. I hope this award is a sign that others in philanthropy want to do more. I hope we can all lean into this call to action and leave old models behind and center justice and liberation for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Regan, and congratulations. So inspiring you are. And now at this time, everyone, we would like to acknowledge our Spirit of Philanthropy honorees who have made contributions in so many diverse ways to the San Francisco Bay Area. And we encourage you to cheer on and congratulate all of our honorees in our chat today. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here they are, your 2020 Spirit of Philanthropy honorees. Let me add congratulations to our Spirit of Philanthropy honorees. Well done, all of you. And now it is my pleasure to present the AFP Golden Gate Chapter Lifetime Achievement Award. This honor is bestowed by the directors to individuals who have offered their community a lifetime of exceptional generosity. The award this year is given to not one, but two outstanding individuals who have made tremendous contributions to philanthropy from different sides of the table. Our first honoree is Mary Barbara Schultz. Mary dedicated her life to leadership and philanthropy, volunteering time, experience, skill, and financial assistance to numerous organizations in the Bay Area. She served as honorary chair of Building Better Health, which raised more than $65 million towards MGH 2.0. She funded a linear accelerator for Marin Health's Cancer Center and renovation of the emergency department. Mary Barbara's gifts have impacted nursing education, cardiovascular care, robotic surgery, hearing and speech, labor and delivery, and much, much more. Her endeavors truly embody of the Lifetime Achievement Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Mary Barbara Schultz.
Good afternoon to you all. My name is Mary Barbara Schultz, and I want to say thank you to everyone that had anything to do with giving this award to me. You probably wonder how many and what were they of the organizations that I have given. Well, you may have heard that I was pretty old. Well, I don't feel old. And I feel like I can do a lot of things still, but my age is now 101 years. And in June, I will be 102 years. So there's still time to go ahead. Now, some of the things that I've been able to help has been the Children's Home Society, the Guide Dogs for the Blind, the Academy of Science,
and your dear hospital.
And to the hospital, our hospital. Of course, there are many other hospitals. Everyone needs help, but our hospital perhaps is more recent than others, and so I would just put in an award for them. So I'm going to leave you now, and I hope you'll remember what I say. I want you to keep safe, because I feel this in my heart, and it makes my heart feel good. And I'd like you to experience that feeling too. Bye-bye.
The second recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award is Kay Sprinkle Grace. For the past 30 years, Kay has enjoyed a distinguished career working with various organizations ranging from public media to health, human services, the arts, education, and the environment. She has received numerous accolades, including the 2020 AFP Global Fundraising Professional of the Year Award. In 2013, she received the Henry A. Rosso Medal for Lifetime Achievement from the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, just to name a couple. I am truly, truly honored to have Kay here with me for a conversation about her work in philanthropy. It is a pleasure and a delight to meet you, and congratulations.
Thank you, Renelle. My pleasure.
So let's start with what led you to a career in fundraising.
Well, I didn't plan to go into this career. I'm sure I didn't even know what this career was. I began as a volunteer, like so many people do. I volunteered for United Way and a little theater group, And I found that no matter which career path I was on, and I was a journalist, a working journalist, and then I was a teacher, and then I was an educational administrator, it was the volunteer work that really just filled my sails. It was the wind beneath my wings. And I thought, my gosh, this is really enjoyable. And I made time for it. So when things changed in education in California and I lost my job like so many did, I was with my friends from Stanford Development, and they said, have you ever thought of going into this professionally? And they gave me the confidence, and I was able to apply for a job where I was already known because of my Stanford work, a children's services organization. And honestly, Renelle, I've never looked back. It was without a doubt the best decision I ever made in my life. And it continues to bear harvest every year. Every time I think of how fortunate I have been to have been in this career, I am so grateful.
You truly found your calling.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Having been through what we've been through in this country over the last 7 months, how do you think that the fundraising community can best support efforts to overcome racial injustices, social injustices, and the healthcare disparities that have just been magnified by the pandemic?
Well, of all sectors that need to be looking at this, we are the ones. We are, after all, based in philanthropy, which is love of humankind. And recently I was chatting with a colleague who's on a national board, and they had just gone through some training in how they could be an instrument in helping to resolve the systemic racism in our society. And they shared with this board, and she shared with me, a metaphor, which is the groundwater and the fish. And it basically says, if you see one fish floating in a pond, poor thing, and you say, I wonder what happened to the fish. We'll have to see what's wrong with the fish. But if you see more and more, and finally you come out and the lake is filled with floating fish, then you know it's not the fish, it's the water. And so you have to figure out what is wrong with the water. And that's what we're going to do now. I am so heartened because, for instance, the board that I'm on, Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra and Chorale, we're having training in this in early December from a professional who's coming out from the Symphony Orchestra League. So I see this in organizations. We can do it because we are the only sector that is founded on the idea of love of humankind.
I love that, and I love the metaphor as well. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, Kay, what does it mean to be the recipient of this Lifetime Achievement Award?
Well, it was a surprise, and I am so honored. And what it means is that I'm not done yet. And I'm not going to retire and say, oh, well, I guess I made it. Instead, it has renewed my energy to keep on with what I do. And mostly now, a lot of the time that I spend is mentoring young people, particularly women, who are coming along in the profession. And I want to give back everything that I can. And that's really what this Lifetime Achievement Award means to me. It means I'm going to keep on keeping on, and that I want to give back as much as I have been given.
Well, thank you so much for all that you have done and will continue to do. And this has been just a wonderful and inspiring conversation. And congratulations again on your well-earned and well-deserved Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all my colleagues who have supported me over the years. You mean the world to me. You are the world to me. So thank you.
Well, it's been such an inspiring hour with all of these heroes and sheroes in this philanthropic community. I hope that you all are energized now and you'll continue working together to build a better community for all. We're all in this together, really. And I now want to bring back your National Philanthropy Day co-chairs, Ken Summers and Louise Gregory, for some final remarks.
Thank you for attending National Philanthropy Day 2020, and congratulations to all of our honorees, and thanks again to our MC, Renelle Brooks Moon.
If you've been moved by today's program, Please consider a donation to encourage and support the young professionals who will be tomorrow's leaders of this community. Let's all work together to change the world for the better. See you in 2021.
Well, thank you both so much. And there you have it, everyone, our first virtual National Philanthropy Day event. Woo, we did it. But more. I'm delighted to bring back Ms. Silverman, Golden Gate Chapter President, to kick off the second portion of today's the NPD Forum. Today's NPD Forum panelists are award recipients: Regan Pritzker, winner of the Outstanding Philanthropist Award; Carl Robles, recipient of the Outstanding Corporate Grantmaker Award; and Jasmine Jones, Executive Director of the West Contra Costa Education Fund, the ED Fund, and recipient of the Outstanding Foundation Grantmaker Award. They're going to share stories and their perspectives on adapting both personal and organizational philanthropy to meet this new moment in time and this unprecedented time and all of these challenges that we are currently facing. So I have to leave you now because, believe it or not, I have another fundraiser I'm hosting in a few hours. Very excited to host this afternoon's Ex-Advocates Gala. It was wonderful to be back this year as your MC. Thank you again for joining us, everybody. And now back to you, Victoria Silverman.
Thank you, Renelle, for your brilliant help once again with National Philanthropy Day. For those of you who are just tuning in, congratulations to all the AFP Golden Gate Chapter National Philanthropy Day 2020 award recipients. It's been a glorious event so far, and we pulled off a virtual, so that's exciting. Again, my name is Victoria Silverman. I'm the current president of the AFP Golden Gate Chapter, and I'm honored to help moderate the second part of our event today, the NPD Forum. So let's begin. I'm going to let you know a little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions you'd like to ask of the panelists, we ask that you submit it through chat, and our team will relay it to me to ask. And we also ask that you hold them towards the end of the program. All right. So welcome to our panelists. Without further ado, I'd like to start with a question that I pose to each or any of you, and that is, why is this moment so pivotal in terms of redefining philanthropy and building community? Who would like to take a stab at answering that question? Any one of you. Regan, would you like to start?
I'm happy to jump in. I can't wait to hear from my fellow award recipients. So such an honor to share some space with all of you, and thank you, Victoria. I think that COVID pandemic has really broken our hearts and broken us open. And I think what's pivotal right now is that we have an opportunity to move out of our heads and into our heart space to come to our work much more vulnerable and open. And I think that's been the root of a lot of the momentum and change we've already seen. But we have an opportunity to lean into that and really see it through to like a transformation on a more systemic scale, or we run the risk of, going back to sort of business as usual. So I think there's so much at stake, the climate crisis, this racial justice moment that's building on so much movement work that I know Jasmine, for as an example, has been involved in for decades. And I think what's possible is that we can lead with our hearts and actually lead as a collective rather than as individuals.
Thanks, Regan. Anybody else?
I'll just add that, yeah, sure. I'll add that it's a very interesting time in philanthropy right now where folks are having conversations about spending down their endowments and having less obstacles to go through to get funding out the door to communities that they support. It's a time where organizations are being bold about what they want to see for their communities and how they want philanthropy to partner with them to achieve that goal. We're in a moment where a fund like the Richmond Rapid Response Fund could launch and be successful, where funders are trusting the leadership of collective fundraising models and not worried about the strategic plans or elaborate theories of change. We're in a moment where we see each other's humanity and are caring more about building a sense of community versus pet projects to put in our portfolios.
Exactly, that's great. Carl?
In response, both Regan and Jasmine, I would just add, to me, there is such an irony
and that in this public health crisis of COVID, we have discovered we're all connected. There is literally nothing that separates us, and that my health is now contingent on your health, and anyone who we work with or visit with or live with or love, our health is intimately and intricately connected. At the exact same time, we have all seen this racial reckoning that has also felt like it has divided us in ways that is just kind of paralyzing and hard to understand and wanting to solve. So I think the institution of philanthropy and anyone we serve needs to see ourselves in both of those spots at once and really embrace the idea of togetherness in a way that we can never unravel again. So I think there's some incredible work to be done.
Great. Thank you, Carl. I'm going to pick up on that. Jasmine, I'm going to ask you, in what ways did partnerships and the community drive the process for the Richmond Fund? It was such an extraordinary story, so maybe you can give us a couple minutes on how it evolved so quickly and how it was so successful.
Absolutely, absolutely. First off, I just want to say thank you again for selecting the Ed Fund to receive the Outstanding Foundation Award. As a little girl from Richmond, California, I would never imagine that at 34 years old, I would be leading an organization doing amazing work in the community I grew up in and supporting the schools that I went to. I'm extremely grateful and honored to represent my community and ancestors through mobilizing resources. I also want to note that Ed Fund is a hybrid foundation, so we raise all of the money we give out. And this year, between the Richmond Rapid Response Fund and our West Contra Costa COVID-19 Fund, we've raised over $1.2 million to support our community. But in terms of talking about how we started the Richmond Rapid Response Fund specifically, when the pandemic hit the Bay Area and the region-wide shelter-in-place went into effect, the RISE Youth Center quickly assembled a space for stakeholders, which included the public sector, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector across the region and the county to come together as a community, just to be in community. We just needed a space to come together at that moment. Through those weekly conversations, folks were exchanging information about how they were supporting their members and their constituents, and some organizations had already begun rapid relief efforts, recognizing that many of the folks in our community would be deeply impacted by this shelter-in-place order. In conversations with funders that have been loyal to Richmond, it became clear that folks wanted to partner with the city as a whole, but really didn't know how. Like, where would they give? What mechanism should they use? And at that point, that's when the Hellman Foundation actually reached out to city staff and asked if they would be interested in starting a fund for the city and provided seed money to begin thinking about what the fund could be. And that part is really important. Providing the seed funding for folks to really be innovative is very important. So at that point, RISE and the Ed Fund were actually called upon as thought partners to inform the development of the fund. And ironically, prior to the pandemic, the Ed Fund was in conversations with Richmond Promise and Building Blocks for Kids about what developing a strategy could draw more philanthropic partners to support the vision of our community. What happened was the pandemic kicked us into gear and forced us to quickly create a system for folks to partner with us during the pandemic and beyond. The core launch partners, which includes RISE, Richmond Promise, Building Blocks for Kids, the City of Richmond, and the Ed Fund, spearheaded the launch of a community vision, which is known as the Richmond Rapid Response Fund, or as we call it, R3F. What is super unique about our fund is that it centers community and partnerships to drive the work. It is also a fund that was developed grassroots style, centering the voices most impacted by the social issues in our community. What's important to know is that this is a collective model because we recognize that we could get more done together.
Thank you. Thank you. You brought up a top comment there, resourcing mobilizers, and I want to ask Regan if she can talk to us a little bit, first of all, a little bit about the Cottlee Foundation, and secondly, a little bit about how our nonprofit leaders watching could be resource mobilizers versus fundraisers. Explain the difference for us.
Thank you. First of all, shout out to Jocelyn Wong, who I think is listening, for giving me that phrase, that idea of resource mobilization. I think that first of all, the Cottlee Foundation was founded in 2018 with $445 million. It's a spend out. My husband and my mother, Susan Pritzker, and I are the founding board, but as a project that's really trying to prioritize shifting wealth, power, decision making to communities. We're in conversations now about what being transitional board members looks like. And Nwamaka Agbo, who's I think also listening, is our CEO and has assembled a team of incredible community leaders who are, in the process of building up this project as a spend out. I think the difference to me between fundraising and resource mobilizing has to do with like how you're living into the mission of the work you're trying to accomplish. And again, moving from kind of hitting your numbers to really being, an organizer within philanthropy. And I think in some ways, this is more a message I want to give to philanthropists, to the funders and the philanthropic professionals, less so the fundraising professionals who I think, in some ways probably already get this. But it's a question of, how do you, speak truth to power, be honest. For white people in this work, I think it's a question of, doing your own sort of racial justice work so you can build stamina around conversations around allyship and be aware of the ways that we impede partnership because of our lack of understanding or comfort, leaning into the dynamics of cross-class and cross-race relationships. So again, it really depends on your positionality, but I think it's about trying to be in partnership with the transformative work that you're trying to support, and being willing to have some tough conversations about what it's going to take, and being willing to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and be on a learning journey in partnership with the community-based organizations that many of us are trying to support. So again, it really depends on your positionality, but I think lean into your discomfort, lean into your learning, and keep a big vision. I think we often get stuck thinking about like our own individual organizations. I think it's really important to remember we're all part of an ecosystem of philanthropy, of the nonprofit world, and we need to work together and in a more cohesive way, I think, if we're going to accomplish these bigger goals of equity and justice.
That's very powerful, Regan. Thank you. Can you actually, I'm going to ask you to continue a little bit further. Talk to us a little bit about your personal journey. How do you arrive at this work at this moment? How did you get there?
Well, I would normally probably just be a kindergarten teacher. I was born into a family with considerable wealth. My parents, I think, broke with some tradition in terms of the family default mode of kind of sort of like automatically passing wealth on to the next generation, which I think came out of a really a survival instinct as immigrants from the Jewish pogroms in Russia coming to America, wanting to build opportunity for family. Is normal to want to like hold on and protect that wealth for future generations. And I give my parents a lot of credit for acknowledging that that the context and circumstances continue to evolve, and that we're at a moment where there's such incredible wealth disparity that families like ours have to step up in a different way. And they were willing to give me and my sort of the next generation more agency around making those decisions. So that's part of what made it possible. For me, like leaning into this work came out of really my work in education and understanding on a deep, visceral level that every single person, for me, little 5-year-old kids coming into the kindergarten classroom, absolutely is worthy and has so much potential, and each one of them is incredibly special, and that our culture and our society doesn't reflect those values structurally. So applying kind of a deep commitment to equity, to resources, and this is kind of where I feel like I showed up as a resource mobilizer, which was being, learning from my the privilege I had through philanthropy when my parents started the Libra Foundation, of meeting with folks like Doria Robinson at Urban Tilth, or Gopal Dayaneni at Movement Generation, or Angela Gerard at Climate Justice Alliance, these different like organizers who were willing to break it down for me and help me understand these systemic issues and how we need to have systemic solutions. And that kind of helped pull me along a journey to kind of keep raising the bar and keep doing more and keep kind of continuing to do that inner work of reckoning and understanding, what is my contribution and how do I best step into that positional power and wield it and not shy away from it. So that's a short version, but it gives you a sense of some of it.
Really inspirational. We'd like to clone you, Regan, that's for sure. On that note, now we're going to, Carl, I'd love to talk to you a little bit, or have you talk to us a little bit about not only your own journey, because every fundraiser in the entire world wants to know how you make that jump from nonprofit executive to CSR, or corporate social responsibility expert, at a place like Twitter, but also, and perhaps equally important, about Twitter's journey and what Twitter's philanthropy is all about these days, and how does somebody actually knock on that door and have an answer?
All right. Thank you. I honestly am forgetting him on the panel because I'm so deeply listening to everything you all are sharing. I will address both of those, Victoria. So Twitter is on an amazing journey. I feel very, very lucky to be part of it. To try and make it as brief as possible, Twitter moved to the mid-market, right on 9th and Market in 2012. And it was that point we really engaged in a deep listening tour of what was happening around us, in the communities around us, which really comprises the Tenderloin and South and Market. And our main investment in the community was a program that we call our Neighbor Nest, which is really a technology training program geared to homeless individuals, homeless families, but also anyone looking to develop skills around how they can make a living wage, but really ensure that what this space did would bring together folks from Twitter and folks from the community in a very seamless way. And really, we've continued in that effort this entire time. So that's been our local journey in San Francisco. I think with the pandemic and with the race reckoning of racial inequality and systemic racism, we're really also called to recognize and understand Twitter is a global megaphone. We are a huge company in which voices are being shared and heard all around the world. So from that perspective, we really try and divide what we do in 3 buckets. We think of our people, and I just wanted to share one brief story, and it's a local story. Years ago, we had a group of data scientists who were really interested in understanding more about the community. So they went to Glide, and they served a couple meals at Glide, which may have felt like just a couple hours of time. It turns out they were able to make some connections with the staff at Glide, and they have been working ever since for 4 or 5 years on how Glide can use the data that they collect to actually better the services they offer to the folks who come to Glide. So I think that idea of people is really important on all sides of that equation. The second part is just our profits. And if folks were paying attention to the news yesterday, we had a very big announcement through our CEO, Ned Siegel, that we would be investing $100 million through some of our investment dollars and profits in a way that I think both Regan and Jasmine described. It's really not thinking of what is Twitter's decision on how to use that money. It's really taking that money and getting it as close to the grassroots movement, particularly in the BIPOC movements and rural movements, to be sure that it is the grassroots community that can best use those dollars. And this is really important because I think many of us have brought up the institution of philanthropy, and it often does have many gates that we're not even aware of. The idea behind an investment like this is remove as many of those gates as possible. And then thirdly, it's just really exercising our platform, which is Twitter. And I just, one example, during the last run up to the election, we were able to work with the NAACP LDF, which is the Legal Defense Fund, and using some of our top brand strategists at Twitter and some of our top content creators, we were able to develop a way that group could actually identify and respond to voter suppression in real time in voting booths around the country. So it's really the people, profits, and kind of platform model for Twitter. Just on a personal level, I'll be brief. I think my parents are on the call. I wouldn't see them, but I think they are. They were in the Peace Corps. My parents really have been my heroes in the sense of who I am as a person. I think Regan described a lot of her upbringing. They just cultivated values in us so early and so young that you never even second guess them. And I remember personally, they did the Peace Corps in Ecuador, and they brought me and my sisters there. And when I was 14, I grew up in rural America, so I had some sense of poverty. I will never forget the images I saw when I was 14 years old. And that just ingrained in me how sort of unjust some of the systems in our world are. And whether I knew it or not, or they knew it or not, at that moment, it was like this thing in my head that switched. It was like, I am going to make sure that anything I can do, whether it be from a nonprofit or, in this case, corporate background, we are going to address that inequality. So that's my answer. I'm happy to answer follow-up if you have any.
That's a great story, and bravo to your parents, and thank you to your parents for raising such a wonderful person who's making a difference in the world. I'm going to ask you another question a little bit later, but I want to skip over to Jasmine for a second. And Jasmine, going back to this incredible model that you put together so quickly for the Richmond Fund, how do you think other organizations can learn from it? Do you see it as a scalable model? And if so, what lessons can you share with us?
Absolutely. So first off, I think I just want to highlight that this work really embodies the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. I think a lesson from R3F is that you can get more done and serve more people when you do it in partnership. I do see this as a scalable model because we're currently scaling it up. We began R3F to quickly get money out the door to residents in a time of crisis, and we've actually served nearly 500 individuals and families. However, we always saw this as something bigger. It wasn't just supposed to be about emergency cash. R3F was really built to coordinate and advocate for direct resources to heal and transform Richmond. We're currently in the process of opening an application for residents to apply for rental assistance and are in the beginning conversations of what support would look like for small businesses in Richmond. This is a model that can be recreated in any city, but what is key to have community drive it. That is the key factor in this, is that it needs to be community driven. We also need partners like Twitter and the Start Small Foundation to invest in places like Richmond. We're an integral part of the Bay Area, and we want the same partnerships and investments as our brothers and sisters in Oakland, San Francisco, and Silicon Valley. We hope that R3F opens the door for greater investments in our community. And I did want to also kind of highlight the principles and practices that guide our work, right? So R3F centers relationships, healing, and justice. R3F centers priorities and lived expertise of community members most vulnerable to systemic harm. R3F disrupts white supremacy and anti-Blackness in our systems, policies, practices, investments, and relationships. R3F coordinates, advocates for, and disperses resources through equitable, humanizing, and transparent processes. R3F cultivates power and procure resources. R3F partners with other response efforts and funds to grow the ecosystem of community assets and power. R3F partners engage in healthy struggle and stay attuned, accountable, and innovative and creative. R3F partners give ourselves grace and space. R3F partners learn and adapt through ongoing inquiry and reflection, and R3F partners celebrate and appreciate our collective work. So I definitely believe this is a model that can be scaled in other communities. It's just a matter of finding the folks to bring it together and have the community drive that vision.
Jasmine, thank you. Hopefully you'll be open to, you're going to probably get a lot of questions and a lot of people reaching out to you after this. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you all three will, so be prepared. Carl, I have to ask the question I know everybody wants to ask, which is how do fundraisers, this is the Association of Fundraising Professionals, how do fundraisers get Twitter's attention?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I will say a big part of my job is manage your expectations. And I say that only because I came from the nonprofit background. Victoria, I know you asked that and I kind of glanced over that, but I have spent with many colleagues lots of time sitting around conference rooms questioning, how do we get tech's attention? How do we get, and I want to say from both sides of that fence, I understand that challenge. I mean, Twitter has made, I think, really wise decisions in how we've invested in the local community. And I think we have also made it clear that we're going to not just be a boing boing philanthropist person who comes in and out. So Compass Family, 826 Valencia, I got to thank them because I know they nominated us for this award. Glide, St. Anthony's, Meals on Wheels, Dev Mission. These are organizations that we have actually committed to year over year over year, and we want to continue to do that. We see the benefit from the community side, that they understand and can count on our support. We see the benefit on the employee side, that they actually year over year develop these same relationships. So I'm saying I wish we could serve everyone, and we can't. So, but I will say, just tactically, and this is not like the silver bullet solution, but so many people like reach out to me on LinkedIn, which is interesting because I'm never on LinkedIn, and I would just say, DM me or find me on Twitter, or like think about like what universe is this person living in, and try and reach them in that capacity. So. But, we're always open to the conversations. I'll say one more thing. In Q1 of 2021, we are unveiling a program called Twitter for Nonprofits. And that's going to be a self-serve model in which any organization could access some of the tools Twitter offers, even to our advertisers. And I think the best way into Twitter is to kind of show us, how would you use this platform to amplify your message? I mean, Jasmine, everything you said, I wish that could have been alive. Somebody's knocking my door. I'm sorry, this is 2020. But Jasmine, that could have been like an incredible Periscope video on Twitter. Like, we want to take what you just said and make sure the world hears that. And the more we can connect those dots, the more successful we will be for community partners and for the platform that we operate.
Okay, fundraisers, you heard that. Twitter for Nonprofits 2021, pay attention. Regan, I guess my question to you is to talk to us a little bit about what it is that you want everybody to know. What do you want Carl to say to you when he says, Regan, we want to amplify your voice and make sure that everybody hears what you're saying, and what do you need to tell them? What do you want everybody in this audience to understand and learn about what it is you're doing and what's important in philanthropy today?
Great, thank you. First of all, I need that Twitter training. I am reachable on LinkedIn. I need Twitter training. So I'm going to circle back to Carl on that one, just for my own personal professional development. But what Katali exists to model and to say to philanthropy is that philanthropy as it exists is not helping. It's not doing the job of changing society for the better. So we're kind of undoing those models of perpetual foundation, of, the people who've accumulated or inherited the wealth are the ones who are going to be the main decision makers. And I also feel like we need to upend the nonprofit dependency model, because I think ironically, it's heartbreaking, right? Because these really well-intentioned, amazing projects end up dependent on philanthropy. So even though we want to get away from that form of philanthropy, we can't, because we're dependent on them, us, we, the white, rich philanthropy people writing those checks every year. So the thing we're trying to do differently is to really invest in regenerative economic systems and structures that build wealth, power, and agency and culture in community. So that can look like anything from reclaiming land for Black farmers in the South or other parts of the US. It can look like community-controlled loan funds that support cooperative businesses like Seed Commons or Boston Ujima in Boston. And it can also look like nonprofits in partnership with other nonprofits, back to what I was saying about being an ecosystem, working collaboratively to, for example, own their own buildings and then use those as either centers for entrepreneurship or for just having the stability of, an asset that you control as a community. So we're really trying to spend our way out of a problem in a way and build solutions on the other side of it that are more regenerative and sustaining. I think that's the most distinct thing I think that Katali is trying to do, and we've modeled out lots of. I mean, we're in a learning space still. We're still developing and iterating, but we have different ways of moving resources. So the Restorative Economies Fund, which is mostly focused on the things I just mentioned in terms of building assets in community. Our environmental justice program area is a model of trust-based philanthropy, was another question we were maybe going to get to later, maybe answer that now, where we have collaboratively built a table of 9 incredible environmental justice activists and advocates who have full discretion over the allocation of the funding for that program area. So we are actually not involved at all. I've met them long enough to say hello and introduce myself and tell them that it's really real, but they're self-organizing to allocate those funds. So just kind of getting, again, using this as a chance to experiment and to move decision-making and power to communities.
That's very, very impressive. And I hope that you're sharing this model with a lot of other funders, because it does need to, it has tremendous potential for impacting the future, no doubt about it. And again, cloning you. I'm going to ask you all the same question, and I really, really would appreciate everybody's response on this one, because as a former fundraiser for 30 years, I know how hard it gets. And right now, I don't think things could be more challenging. So what would you say to all of the frontline fundraisers and nonprofit executives out there watching to stay motivated and energized during this tough time? Anybody want to start that one?
I'll start.
Carl? Okay.
Oh. Carl, you want to go?
No, Jasmine, I'll follow you.
Okay.
You go first.
I was just going to say, remember why you do this work. That keeping that center and at your heart, knowing that, you know, you're serving the communities that you want to serve, and you're changing the world in essence, right? Whether it's locally or globally, you're making a difference and you're making a change. And so keeping that near your heart when times are hard. Also recognizing that there is an abundance of resources available throughout the Bay Area and throughout this country. And it is our job to ensure that those resources are mobilized and distributed equitably. And the communities you serve are counting on you. So never lose sight of that.
Thanks, Jasmine. Carl?
Yeah, that was amazing, Jasmine. I was thinking back to a panel we put together at Twitter just like a month into COVID, and something we had Compass Family Services on the panel. They're a very strong partner of ours, and their executive director, Erica Kish, said something I'll never forget. She said, we used to think homelessness was the crisis. If only we could go back to that. And it was so powerful to think, I mean, some of the issues we're facing have been with us for decades, for longer. And yet this pandemic has shown such an extraordinarily bright light. I think we are in a very dark hour, so I understand why anyone would feel frustrated, would feel helpless, and would feel scared. These are emotions I wish we could take away, but they're natural and they're here for a reason. I think my advice and my own inspiration is that in this darkest of hours, we are discovering some of the most incredible solutions to these problems. And along with what Jasmine said, the resources and the hope, I mean, we are going to get to the other side of this, and we are going to have learned so much about the gaps that we need to fill. And I'm speaking for Twitter and what we can do to fill that. We need to work with the federal government and state and local governments. I mean, we can no longer exist in these kind of silos and just expect somebody else to jump in and fill it, you know. And even as an individual member living in Oakland, like, I'm going to be more committed and involved to my local community. So I wish there was something I could say right now for the next, you know, appeal you're going to send out, but just stick with it and know we are going to get to the other side of this.
Thank you. Thanks. Regan, how about you?
Well, I so agree with everything that's been said. It's hard to go last. But I think from a funder perspective, I would just add that it's important to understand that this is a time when the expectations are higher, that it's important to be bold. And I think asking more of those of us who have more, and hopefully people are coming to that on their own, but as resource mobilizers, I think it's our, you know, I think of myself as a resource mobilizer too, to the extent I'm trying to bring others along on my journey too. It's our job to be unabashed in our expectation that people are giving back at even more significant levels. And I think, you know, we're looking for a complete systems change. We have to switch from an individualistic, hierarchical, you know, winner-take-all worldview and economic system to a collective, collaborative, regenerative, restorative, healing economy. And that's a very high bar, but if we don't keep that big picture in mind, we're going to keep working in half measures. And I think one thing we've learned is that's really not going to get us there. So I encourage people to keep the big picture in mind, not to be overwhelmed by it, but to keep it as a North Star, and then have it motivate you to be bold in your demands. And, there's a lot of philanthropy on the table right now. The Jeff Bezos $10 billion Earth Fund, people are pushing back a little bit and starting to ask really tough questions about, first of all, the ethical framing of that kind of economic power in the nonprofit sector, but also, kind of framing, like, if you're going to be showing up in this space philanthropically, what are you doing professionally to also apply those values? So I think, again, keeping the systemic frame in mind and having that give you fuel and energy to make bigger asks and push back on things that are working at cross purposes to our quest for collective liberation and justice.
Thank you. That's very powerful. Who do you follow? Who do you read? Who do you watch, Regan, to help motivate you in this area? I mean, you obviously are have a wealth of knowledge, and you're also quite an education expert, if you will, and you care deeply about education. So what is it that you read that inspires you?
I follow a lot of amazing folks. Let's see, I didn't prepare this one, but Adrienne Mary Brown is one of the facilitator leaders who really early on inspired me around the just transition framing and emergent strategy. I've been listening to Alicia Garza's podcast, which I highly recommend. There's I just found a new one. You might have to come back to me. Gosh, there's so many incredible folks out there. I have actually a Google Doc, maybe I can send it to you, that has like a ton of resources listed out, because I've been keeping these for myself to just, build my curriculum as I'm learning and following.
How about you, Jasmine or Carl? Either of you have want to share with us who it is that is inspiring you to do your work every day?
I feel like my son inspires me to do my work every day. I have a 4-year-old son, and he is absolutely amazing. And I think about the world I want for him and, where I want him to be. And when he grows up, he inspires me. We're reading and listening to some Dr. Kenneth Hardy too right now. And as we're doing some work with our board around equity and shifting the way we operate. But yeah, I think my son is my biggest inspiration.
That's sweet. That's great. I hope that he will appreciate that later when he understands it. How about you, Carl?
I'll say a few. I was trying to cheat and Google a name while you were talking, but Abraham Kendi, I read the book on being an anti-racist, and Twitter has actually been an amazing resource, just simply providing a lot of lists that you can follow, a whole consortium of people. And admittedly, I haven't heard of some of these folks, and that's my own lack of information. So I think there's something about being in the information age that has really allowed me to open my eyes. But he was a big one, and I read his book, right after the murder of George Floyd. I needed to understand and feel something. I locally, I love Del Seymour. If folks know him on the call, he runs Code Tenderloin. He's someone I've known for close to a decade, if not longer. I actually met him when I was working at St. Anthony's, and I met him in that context and have just stayed very close friends with him. He married my husband and I a year and a half ago, and I watch his work. I mean, he's not a young man. I don't know if Del's on the call, but he never gives up. This man has more energy. He called me at 7 a.m. this morning, and I was like, too early. Can't do it. And it's just those people in the community that just never, ever slow down. Actually, Kay Sprinkle Grace, I got to work with her briefly for the Meals on Wheels Capital campaign, which is just about wrapping up, and she was very helpful. You can't slow down, so you got to find those people that inspire you. And the third is, it's kind of a cheesy answer, but I read the New York Times review section every Sunday, and it's a very diverse portfolio of voices. I just like it. I think it's the energy I need to both question where I am coming from and understand perspectives out in the world. And so those are my sources.
That's great. Thank you. Regan, if you think of anything else you want to share with us, let us know later on. We're going to turn to questions pretty soon here, but I just want to ask you all to have the opportunity, if there's anything you want to share with this audience today that I haven't asked you or that you haven't gotten a chance to, I want to just open that up to you to feel free to share anything that you think is important to this conversation. I'll give you a pause.
I'll give a shout out. I did think of my favorite person on Twitter is actually the executive director of the Libra Foundation, Crystal Haling. So follow Crystal on Twitter and read her article. She's really my mentor in speaking out to the philanthropic sector and organizing in the philanthropic sector. And I think Jasmine, I'm pretty sure, was focusing on this idea that we're stronger together. And I think that is so true. And I think philanthropy, to its detriment, is very focused on the individual, which is sort of the reason I gave that kind of complicated response to the honor I feel with receiving this award, is that it's so individualistic. And I think, people in the philanthropic sector who are building alliances and organizing together and bringing other, potential philanthropists into the circle, but with this lens on equity and redistribution and reparations and really challenging the status quo. Crystal really represents that very beautifully. There are others, obviously, in the field, but she's a good source for that framing. Also, nonprofit AF, I'll call it that, is another.
Yes, that's a good one.
You're going to get the real scoop. And I think we need to be able to do more of that with each other. We need to be more like New Yorkers and less like Californians, and be a little more direct with one another with love in our hearts to say what we're doing is not okay and it has to change. I think that's something I want to invite people to push back on me when I make missteps, with love, hopefully. But I commit to being honest with folks and trying to be really direct and call folks in ways that make us all able to do a better job.
Thank you. Anybody else want to chime in? Because I am starting to get some questions now.
I just want to say, thank you to the folks that invested early on in the Richmond Rapid Response Fund. Without the Hellman Foundation, the Cal Foundation, the Mayor of Richmond, the California Endowment, and others, we wouldn't be able to be put on the map like we are right now. And so just really grateful to those early investors and those who believe in the vision in our community. And I invite everyone else to give us a call so we can talk more about what we're doing here in Richmond and how you can support the work we are doing here.
Great. Fair warning, you're going to get a lot of calls.
I guess I'll just follow up. Regan, when you just said that San Francisco, New York thing, I thought of that Kurt Vonnegut quote, something about stay in New York 2 years, but don't become too hard. Stay in California 2 years, don't become too soft. I've been here 20 years, so I need to take that into heed. And I just want to also thank you all for organizing this. When we talked about getting us through this year, I am just astounded and impressed in like the ability to pull this off. It's incredible. So thanks to everyone who's been part of this. And also just to say how much I miss seeing people, even now, seeing your faces and hearing and being able to chat with you all. I mean, what I would not give to be in a hotel room with rubber chicken, who cares what we're eating, and just have that experience of just chatting. Because I do think it's in that in-between space that we actually can solve a lot of problems. And I've heard that from many colleagues, both on the tech side and the nonprofit side. We miss that. There's something we miss about a Zoom meeting that starts at 10, ends at 10:30, and lacks some of that infrastructure. But, I would just say in closing, we have a tremendous amount of hard work to do. In this industry, in this philanthropy cycle, definitely is part of that work. And I think what we've heard from this panel is look within ourselves as an individual, and then as the groups we're serving, and the more that we can balance and democratize those voices, the better off we're going to be.
Absolutely. We all miss the roast rubber chicken lunch too, where we can all network. So we're with you on that one, Carl. We've got our first question here, and it is from Del Seymour, coincidentally. And asks, how can we as a community and an industry collaborate to transfer the post-COVID volunteer efforts from organizations like Twitter to a virtual model with the same impact post-COVID? Who'd like to take a stab at that one?
I'll go first, just because I know we've dabbled pretty directly in this, and we have two company-wide days of service a year. We call them Twitter for Good days, one in May and one in October. And we had been planning for the May one until March. We had many sites where we're going to be at parks and be in free dining rooms and sorting clothes and all the things we normally do. And all of a sudden it stopped. So we really scrambled to try and create remote opportunities in May. And we did a good job, but we did it again in October. And it was really fascinating to see that ways in which both nonprofit organizations have adapted and ways in which the companies have. And I think one example was a group we worked with called Junior Achievement. And we were able to pull off 100 career mentoring sessions around the world with one Twitter employee and one young person looking to get into tech. And just we couldn't have wrapped our heads around how to do that before everything went virtual. And we literally had people from Ethiopia, Sub-Saharan Africa, parts of Southeast Asia. And it was just really incredible to see something like that transpire. And I want to make sure that we can continue to do that.
Thank you. Anybody else want to answer that question, or should we move on to other ones?
Well, just briefly, I feel like for me, the reframe I was thinking was all the organizing and mobilizing that's happened around our election cycle, and not to get politically specific, but I'm excited about how we keep that momentum going in terms of civic engagement and engagement in democracy, running for office, supporting candidates, investing in grassroots mobilization, seeing the connections between nonprofit community and civil society infrastructure building, and how that translates to political power and agency. So I'm again, I think it's a slightly different frame on that question, but I think it's absolutely critical that as a broader society, we keep this momentum going and think of it as a new floor for engagement. In whatever you were showing up to support, whether it was bringing food to your neighbor who needed food, whether it was volunteering, whether it was, supporting your kids in their own school efforts and juggling all of that, or writing, 2,000 letters to Georgia. I hope we all keep that up.
Great. Jasmine, do you want to address that, or should I go on to another question?
We can go on to another one.
All right. Another question comes in. How does one knock on the door of funding opportunities?
I can take that one because we've struggled a lot with that as a foundation. We have a small team. We don't have yet a open inquiry on our website, and I struggle with that. We want to be able to do justice to inbound inquiries and be able to really respond appropriately, and haven't really built out that infrastructure yet. I am on LinkedIn, and you can ping me with just if you think there's a fit. Happy to have the door knocked on that way. But I think it's true that it can be hard to get into an ecosystem that's already connected. So I think for the Katali Foundation, a good way is to look on our website. We do list all of our grantees and kind of look to see where does your project or your organization fit into some of the work we're doing. Does it fit, first of all? And if it does, are you in relationship, are you in partnership with some of our grantees potentially? Because we get a lot of our new grantees from our current grantees. We kind of say, who else is in this space? Who do you partner with? Who do you rely on? Whose work are you dependent on to be successful? And we try to fund kind of up and downs from like infrastructure organizations that are supporting maybe networks of organizations down to the very specific grassroots organizations. So because we need these ecosystems to be healthy in order to move to this more sustainable regenerative system that we're trying to model out.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Please.
I was going to say, I just knock on the door. I think you have to be bold and courageous and reach out to folks, have those conversations. I think with this collective model that we've started with R3F, it also has allowed us to share our resources with each other with the various different nonprofits. And so, like Regan said, you know, how is Ed Fund talking about building blocks for kids, or how is Richmond Promise talking about RISE? And we're sharing those different partners with other people we know and our funders. But I think just going out and reaching out to talk to people. And so if it means going on to LinkedIn or going on to Twitter or calling your funder friend to see if they can put you in contact with the other friend. And I also think it's really important for funders to do that, right? And so San Francisco Foundation has been really instrumental in connecting other funders to the Ed Fund and to the Richmond community. And so I think as much as possible that funders can say like, hey, go check out this community because they're doing great work. That is going to be very important.
Indeed it is. Thank you. Carl?
And I'll try and answer that in 3 bullet points. One, I just want to go back to that, the gift we made to the CDFIs, which are community development financial institutions. And that part of the gift like that is to really democratize how the money gets out the door. So, you know, people like the West Contra Costa Public Education Fund will have lenders right in your community. So you won't need to feel you're stretching so far out of your network. The support will be a lot closer to where you are. And I think that that's very valuable in all of philanthropy. A second answer is to, and I've alluded to this, really be thoughtful of the space in which the funder is in. So speaking on behalf of Twitter, if you could show, and you being the entity that you're representing, why Twitter could help you, as opposed to saying, I need this help, which I know many, many people need the help. Why is Twitter uniquely positioned to help you? Connect that dot, and I think that will help open the door. And thirdly, some of our most exciting nonprofit partnerships have emerged from within the nonprofit community itself. And just to give Dell and Code Tenderloin another example, we work with Code Tenderloin and then we learn about the groups they are working with. So that collaborative space in the nonprofit community is really important to be able to fully understand the players. One of the groups we funded in the last 2 years is called Tectonica, and that's exactly how we found them. I don't even know if they reached out to us directly, but we saw the work they were doing with a number of our partners, and it made total sense. And they essentially work with non-binary women, mostly women of color, and they really look to break that kind of gender gap in engineering. And it was perfect for Twitter. And so it wasn't even a direct communication. It was, they are clearly embedded in a group of people.
Wonderful. Thank you. 3 important points. We have one more question, which is really a great exit question, and then I'm going to say a few words to thank you all. But the last question is, how do you see, or what do you see in the future of philanthropy? A very big question. I think all 3 of you addressed it in specific ways, but if you could just give us a last thought on this, would be really helpful.
I think deeper partnerships and collaboration. So both philanthropic partners partnering with the various sectors, so the public sector and the nonprofit sector. I think we can't continue to operate in silos. And so how do we all come together to address various issues in our community? And deep collaboration with the partners who are driving the work on the ground and trusting them and seeing them as the leaders and the drivers of this work is the future of philanthropy.
Thanks, Jasmine. Regan?
I think the future of philanthropy looks like community leaders, activists, frontline organizers being at the decision-making table to decide where resourcing should go. I think it looks like wealth being held in community by folks who are best positioned to solve our big climate and social issues. I think we need to really look at how philanthropy can kind of put itself out of business in service of better political, economic, and civil structures that are truly committed to justice and equity.
Thank you. Carl, any last words on this?
I'll end to say if we do this reunion tour in 3 years, hopefully in person, I would love to see philanthropy look just like the communities in which they serve. So, or we serve, I should say. And, you know, I know at Twitter, under the leadership of Delana Brand, who's our Vice President of People and Diversity and Inclusion. She and her team have set public benchmarks as to where our company internally needs to really become the most diverse tech company in the planet. And I think it's that public sharing of that information that has really challenged us, and we are making tremendous progress. When I say we, I want to give all credit to Delana and her team, but you can see the metrics. We have gone from like 2% to 5% African American. That's not good enough, but we can see where we're going. And I would love to see philanthropy do the same thing. That we as a collective community really look. It's the same with law enforcement. It's all these things are connected. We should look and feel. There shouldn't be these separators and dividers. And that's what I hope to see.
Well, you all are so incredibly inspirational. I can't tell you. I am honored to be in this business and because of people like you. So I just want to take a minute and thank you all for your time today, for taking this extra time and serving on this panel. Congratulations to you all again for your awards, and congratulations to all of our panelists, all of our award recipients today. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to watch our show and to help celebrate the Association of Fundraising Professional Golden Gate Chapters 35th National Philanthropy Day. I wish you all safety, health, and kindness. Thank you.
Thank you.